Welcome back into another episode of the Ball Boys podcast. We finally reached double digits, and we just got out of a little production meeting. And good news, Ball Boys about to be coming to you 2 times a week for the NFL season. You know that when all these games are going on, we couldn't just be talking once a week. This had to be twice a week for the NFL season. Now today we're doing the NFC North, and you're going to see a second video where we do the AFC North, same outfits, same recording session. But today's video will be the NFC North. Now, this division, it's surprising to me when I looked back at the standings from last year, how crazy these records were compared to the way that I actually view these teams going into this year. A lot of changes coming to the NFC North and a lot of question marks surrounding really, I would say, every team in this division. Now, of course, the Minnesota Vikings won this division last year, 13-4, with a negative point differential. A minus 3 point differential, 8-1 at home, 11-0 in one-score games. The Minnesota Vikings were perhaps the most exciting team in all of football. They came back from 33-0 to the Colts. They had that crazy game with the Bills where Jefferson may have had the best catch in NFL history.
Popping, bro.
Yeah. Josh Allen, the fumble, and then it was the Minnesota Vikings had a crazy, crazy year. Of course, it came to an end in the wild card round as Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley walked into Minnesota, met primetime Kirk at 4:30, and said, "Get out of here." And the 9-8, I think they were 9-8. The 9-8 Giants got rid of the 13-4 Vikings. So regular season be damned, I guess. Now going into this year, Adam Thielen finds a new team in Carolina. Dalvin Cook finds a new team on Nolan's Jets. Now, Alexander Mattison, he's taken the reins. Jordan Addison, in my opinion, the second best wide receiver prospect in the draft, was the fourth one taken off the board by this Vikings team, finds himself in that wide receiver 2 role. Maybe he's battling with KJ Osborne in your eyes, but I think we all know where the talent is. There's a reason they spent a first-round pick on this guy. They brought TJ Hawkinson in midway through last year. He instantly became one of Kirk's favorite targets. And of course, Jay Jettis, Justin Jefferson, right now has the title of best receiver in football. Is he, more talented than Devontae Adams? Debate that in the comment section, but he had the best statistical season last year, did Justin Jefferson. The Vikings offense, I think it's still going to be dynamic. I'm not sure where you land on them, but I think they're still in a good spot offensively.
Yeah, so it's very tough to predict this whole division, honestly. I think out of all the divisions, this is easily the toughest. And I think if you said any team to win would win, like I could totally see
you
it.
You can make the case.
Exactly. But definitely for Minnesota, that Jordan Addison pick is humongous for them. Because, Jett is going to get double team, because Adam Thielen, he was that guy last year, but he was on the downfall. I didn't like him too much going into last year. But Jordan Addison at that 2 spot, maybe even 3, that is going to be awesome for Kirk Cousins in that offense. So just for that reason alone, I think they have some high expectations, I think, this year.
Yeah, and for the record, Adam Thielen, for all of his downfalls, ran the 3rd most routes of eligible players in the NFL last year. There's routes to be had, and with him and Dalvin Cook on, there's targets to be had. Jefferson already had a ton. It's hard to imagine that guy's volume going up. Now, somebody's got to fill those holes. Madison, Hawkinson obviously will be there all season, but Jordan Addison, I think a lot's going to be asked out of that kid pretty early on in this NFL season. When you deep dive into the personnel, per PFF, the 15th ranked offensive line, the 17th ranked defensive line, Danielle Hunter, we're still kind of wishy-washy, not a very talked about storyline, but he's another guy that's kind of holding out right now. In the 25th ranked secondary, obviously their secondary was a problem for them last year. Patrick Peterson was their corner 1, and now he's in Pittsburgh. So points will be scored aplenty. The Vikings will still be in exciting football games. I could promise you that. And when we look at the team that finished second in this division, we have the Detroit Lions, America's team. They finished 9-8 last year, but the public, they're high on the Lions this year. Could be a sign to fade them. I'm not sure. We'll get to our picks, but Detroit, they scored more points than the Minnesota Vikings last year by 3 touchdowns. They were the highest scoring team in this division. Obviously, they started the season slow, finished it hot, picking up steam. Dan Campbell, they were on Hard Knocks. They were, everybody loved them. This offseason, they were busy at the running back position. Jamal Williams, who they had last year, that was the touchdown leader, he's out. He's in New Orleans. DeAndre Swift, who's a very talented back, is now in Philadelphia. The team spends their 12th overall pick on Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, who is getting Alvin Kamara comparisons. And they bring in David Montgomery from division rival, the Chicago Bears. So a revamped running back room. Dan Campbell, who was on that New Orleans Saints coaching staff with Sean Payton when they had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara have their huge seasons. You can kind of see the picture he's painting here. Jared Goff, former number 1 overall pick, was an excellent passer last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown really solidified himself as that number 1 receiver. They draft rookie tight end Sam Laporta, bring back Marvin Jones. So it's a revamped offense with some of the same core pieces and some new guys in the running back room. They have a top-tier offensive line. I believe they are 5th ranked. Yes, 5th ranked per PFF. Penei Sewell out of Oregon. Obviously, soft spot for me as a Ducks fan, but Nolan, what do you think of this offense? I mean, how excited are you to see them, especially Thursday night versus the Chiefs opening the season?
Yeah, so I mean, this, like you said, this offense is going to be really fun to watch, especially because, like we just mentioned, the Vikings, they have no defense. So I think when those two teams play each other, high-powered, bro. But
Shootouts inbound.
Yeah, so I mean, talking about the lines, though, I mean, like you said, I love the Sun God, bro. St. Brown for fantasy this year, big time, So, but I really like that David Montgomery pickup.
Yeah.
Not for fantasy, he's whatever, but he's an awesome runner.
I mean, him and Gibbs are going to be so good together for like real NFL purposes. Such a good one too.
It's gonna be tough to stop them. I mean, ever since he was at Indiana, he's been a baller. And I love Laporta too. He's a super sleeper. I'm not sure how much he'll produce this year.
He's from tight end U, Iowa.
Yep. Yeah. So, but definitely in the next couple of years, he'll be a beast. But that whole offense, I like it. The thing though is their defense. It's the same thing with the Vikings.
So people say that their defense is bad, and I'm gonna make the case here. I'm gonna try and sell you on the Detroit Lions defense as not being some top tier one, but being middle of the pack, which should be good enough for a high powered offense. You have Aiden Hutchinson, Michigan's star edge rusher. I think this guy is gonna be an absolute unit in the NFL. They draft Jack Campbell, linebacker. What I've been seeing of this guy in preseason, this guy is a heat-seeking missile. They address the secondary. Of course, I don't need to sell you as an Eagles fan on C.J. Gardner-Johnson and that dog that he brings into the defense. But they brought in 2 new corners, Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley. Are those guys top-tier corners? No. But they're better than what they had. They quickly come in and are number 1 and number 2 corners on this team. When they play the Vikings, I prefer the Lions defense. I mean, you have the best player in Aiden Hutchinson. I think, seriously, this guy's going to take the leap either this year or next year, and he's going to enter Defensive Player of the Year conversations. What we saw from him last year, I hate to make the comparison because they look alike, but it looked like J.J. Watt. It looked like the dude was playing defensive end getting interceptions. He looks like J.J. Watt.
Yeah, and I know
is Aiden Hutchinson the next guy?
A lot of people disagreed with that pick, too.
Yeah.
They did not like that Hutchinson pick.
Well, Detroit's going to keep proving people wrong with picks that they don't like because Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be an absolute freak at the running back position. Guys that are taking that early average 250 touches. He's going to be a part of the offense with Jameson Williams suspended the first 8 games of the year. He is going to line up out wide. People think that, we're diving a little bit into fantasy here, so there's a little fantasy take for you all. When David Montgomery's on the field, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be lined up in the slot. Let me tell you right now, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be on that field. You don't draft a guy at 12 for for him to be just a third down receiving back. I promise you that Detroit's got a lot to like. Obviously, I think America may be a little high on them. There's always those teams that we just want to see be good. Detroit is still Detroit, but they're a very exciting team along with the Vikings. And then in third place last year, the Green Bay Packers, 8-9. Aaron Rodgers. That's not how he wanted to go out, but no Devontae Adams really showed for this team. Christian Watson early in the season was not good. You remember he had that dropped catch versus Minnesota. Could have changed their whole season. Really could have. Romeo Doubs, who was America's sweetheart for the Packers, the fantasy sweetheart all preseason, was nothing. Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, Aaron Rodgers guys, that's who he was throwing to. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon wasn't what people thought he'd be. The Packers were just underwhelming. The defense was still solid. The defense was still good, but, now they lose some pass rushing. It's just, I don't know. When we look at this Packers roster, it's so many question marks. What is Jordan Love? Do Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, do those guys got it? Is Christian Watson the true wide receiver 1, or was it a flash in the pan in the second half of last year? Who's the wide receiver 2 for this team? Is it Romeo Doubs? Is it one of the 2 guys that they drafted in like the 5th and 6th round this year? Is it going to be some random guy? Is Luke Musgrave going to be good? They spent a real high draft pick on him, but then you had him dropping passes in preseason games and practices that's coming out. The offense has so many question marks, and it makes me think that they should have gone to Jordan Love sooner, a year sooner, because now this is the last year of his deal. You could pick up his 5th-year option, but what do you make of this Packers offense this season? Like, what is the expectation?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. Looking at the offense, like we've seen Jordan Love here and there, but nobody has any idea of who he is. Even like last year, I feel like he should have played a lot more because I know you have Rodgers and you want him to go out good, and at that time they didn't even know if he was coming back or not. So but even though like you still should have let Love play a decent amount. But this year I will say he does have decent weapons to produce. Matt LaFleur he's an awesome offensive coach, so I think he has all the tools to succeed, and it's the perfect opportunity to really be like, okay, can this guy ball? If he does, yeah. If he doesn't, all right, goodbye. And I will say they do have Sean Clifford, backup quarterback. Got the QB2 position.
Oh, come on. He sucked at Penn State. He's not going to be anything in the NFL.
I was going to get there, but, hey, he could make some noise, but I doubt it. But
he can't make no noise. That's the Penn State in you talking. He can't make no noise.
No, but
Aiden Hutchinson was busting his ass in the Big Ten. He's going to bust his ass again if he gets some playing time in the NFL.
Yeah, but I do love me some Aaron Jones, bro. He's been my guy for like the past 4 years in fantasy. But this year, I don't know, man. This might be his decline, and the rest of that team, we'll see. I'm excited though to see Jordan Love. I mean, he's a quarterback in Green Bay, so you can't not watch that.
Yeah. Now, the exciting thing for the Packers is, in my opinion, far and away, they clearly have the best defense in the division. They use a first-round pick on Luke Van Ness. I think he's going to be solid out the gate. You have Kenny Clark, and I'm a big fan of the secondary. Jair Alexander, obviously, he gets talked about a bunch. I'm a huge Eric Stokes guy. I think, right up there with Philly, obviously, who has Slay and Bradbury. This is one of the top-tier cornerback duos. Definitely in the NFC, obviously, maybe in the NFL. I don't think of a lot of CB duos like that, but those guys are solid. Last year, if you look at the stats, they gave up 371 points allowed. The next closest was 427, and it was the Vikings. So a huge gap there. They had the best defense last year. I think they'll have the best defense again. But the team that finished in last year, team that ended the year on a 10-game losing streak, the team that had the number 1 pick in the draft and traded away for assets, mind you, the Chicago Bears were 3-14. Yet everybody thinks Justin Fields is going to win an MVP this year somehow. And my question is how? Because if you were telling me this team's going from 3-14 on a 10-game losing streak with Justin Fields, mind you, to it's got to be at least an 11-win team if he's winning MVP. I just don't see the pathway. Now, again, similar to what we talked about with Detroit and Minnesota, exciting offense. Fields, Herbert, Foreman, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Chase Claypool, Mooney. There's some exciting pieces here on this offense. Definitely some exciting fantasy prospects. But for me, that's where this team starts and ends. Because their offensive line, 21st ranked. Their defensive line, 31st ranked. And their secondary, 20th ranked. And that offensive line, let me read some things to you. Brand new right side of the line. Their center last season played left guard. Their left guard last season played right guard. The only guy on that offensive line that's retaining his position or has been there for a year is their left tackle. That offensive line, Justin Fields is mobile. Well, he better be, because I don't see a lot of time. Now, they showed a lot of promise with those screenplays in the preseason, so maybe that's the offense, but to me, the Bears have become way too overhyped. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. You know how I felt on the last episode when talking about Fields, and I don't see it in him. And I'm gonna say it again. I think he's a bust, Ohio State curse, whatever you call it. But for me, it's just the whole Bears offense for me, and that like offensive line. You can only do so much during the game, And Fields, he had an amazing run of stretch of runs last season, and they still lost those games. So I'm thinking of like the same thing happening this year. Yeah, they could get some wins out of those, but like you said, there's no shot they could get 10, 11 wins, bro. It's too insane. I think they need a couple more years, especially with that big trade they had. They got to get more assets.
I just think the fans need to be realistic with the standards of the Bears. I think the Bears are going in a positive direction, but I don't think the Bears are, the team with the number 2 overall pick, the Houston Texans, are not getting the same love that the Bears are getting. But to me, the rosters are very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Justin Fields better than C.J. Stroud at this point in time, but there's pieces on the Houston side. I definitely prefer Dameon Pierce to Khalil Herbert. I mean, Houston's got Will Anderson. They don't have a defensive playmaker like that in Chicago. So those two teams are, Stingley as well, a good corner. Those two teams are a lot closer than people are giving them credit for. Nobody's talking C.J. Stroud for MVP. So I don't see why we're talking Justin Fields, but I'm going to give you the floor here, Nolan. Why don't you give me your playoff order from 4 to 1?
All right. So this was the hardest division for me to place a bet on. I have an 8-team parlay with division winners, and this one took me about, no joke, like 5 to 10 minutes. Like I really had to think. So fourth place, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. I don't trust Jordan Love at all. And I think honestly, that's the worst quarterback in the division right now, and because of that, they're going to finish in last. So I'd give them like 6 wins, I think, 6 and 11, maybe 5, but I'll say 6. Third place, I go Chicago Bears. I think they do get better this year to improve, but they don't exceed their expectations, and we'll see with the Justin Fields talk going into next year how that goes, but I'll give them, I think, 7 or 8 wins. I think that's reasonable for me. Second place, I have the Detroit Lions. I do not trust the Detroit Lions, bro. I don't care how good they are. I'm not the biggest Jared Goff guy. I never was. They do have an awesome offense, but there's something about that team. Maybe it's because everybody's on them this year. I don't trust them whatsoever.
Fade in the public.
I think that's what it is. I can't. My gut is telling me not to do it. But if they did beat the odds, I wouldn't be surprised. And then first, I had Minnesota. I think that Addison pick is going to be huge for them. Like I said, Jetta amazing, Kirk Cousins, and that defense is suspect, like we were saying. But there's going to be high-powered offenses in that division, and I think those games are going to be shootouts. So because of that, I think I trust that team the most out of any of the other 3 teams. So
yeah, I mean.
10 wins, I think Minnesota give them.
Yeah, that's fair, sound reasoning. On a division where we mentioned, it could go a lot of different ways. Me and you have it going different ways. In fourth place, I have the Chicago Bears. I have the Bears at 5 and 12. I think the offensive skill pieces are nice, and I think we're going to see flashes in the pan, and maybe some more competitive games, and I don't see a full 10-game losing streak in their season. But at the end of the day, this team had the number 1 pick for a reason. They improved slightly. in terms of skill areas, which is nice for their quarterback's development. But that's all I view this season as, a developmental season for the Bears. The roster all around is not that good. In third place, I have the Green Bay Packers at 6-11. You could easily flip-flop these two for me. I think they're the clear bottom two teams. Jordan Love, I think he's a more refined quarterback, a refined passer than Justin Fields. Obviously, Fields has a higher ceiling, but going into this year as a game manager, I don't hate Jordan Love. A little wishy-washy at the weapons, but I think the run game is going to be good, and this team does have the best defense in the division. That's going to matter when the weather gets colder in Chicago, Green Bay. Obviously, Detroit, Minnesota have the domes, but that's why I give the slight advantage to Green Bay there. In second place, I have the Minnesota Vikings at a 9-8 record. Everybody knew that this was not a 13-win team last season, 11-0 in one-score games. Came back from 33-0. They had a negative point differential while finishing with 13 wins. It was fraudulent, let's just be honest. Kirk Cousins, primetime Kirk, playing a first-place schedule. It's going to hurt them. Is Addison ready to be an immediate X factor for this team right away? I don't know, but he's going to need to be because there's a lot of missing targets. Hawkinson, Jettis, they're great, but that defense, that secondary, it is trash. And again, playing a first-place schedule, got to face some good receivers. I have them at 9-8. And of course, winning the division, that means I have the Detroit Lions. Now, I'm not as high on them as the public. I have them winning the division at 10-7. So it's not a crazy record. They were 9-8 last year. I think they're one spot better. But I do think that they significantly upgraded at the running back position, despite what the stats will show you with Jamal Williams. David Montgomery's a better player, and Jahmyr Gibbs, fresher legs. And this system wants him. Amon-Ra St. Brown ready to take another leap. Jared Goff. He was a former number 1 overall pick for a reason. He can lead a team. We've seen him lead a team to a Super Bowl. He could certainly lead the Lions to 10 wins this year. That's how I got this division shaking out. Obviously, let us know in the comment section. Whose NFC North do you have most correct, or what's your predictions? Let us know what we got right, what we got wrong. Make sure you check out our AFC North preview video out this weekend.